Welcome back to the Bourbon Note, everybody. I'm Ben. I've got allegedly a perfect bourbon on the bar. Let's get into it. So tonight I've got, bam, this is a sample from my friends over at Bourbon School. Go check out Bourbon School. Brian, Lauren, and Marianne do a wonderful job. This is Weller's CYPB. 95 proof from the Weller line from Buffalo Trace. This is maybe one of the hardest to find of the Wellers as far as I know. I think this is probably one of the more rare ones. It's called CYPB, which means Create Your Perfect Bourbon. And from what I understand, I think it was some sort of like crowdsource thing where they let people vote on which, I don't know, where in the rick house to source the barrels from, what the proof should be. Interesting to me that if they crowdsource that from bourbon fans, they came up with 95 proof. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if they got to choose the proof on it, to be honest, but I think it was something about choosing the barrels in the warehouse. I'm gonna put a little bit more of this in the glass. Anyway, I think this thing runs normally around the $50 mark, but of course with all of the Weller products and most Buffalo Trace products, very hard to find, very, very hyped, and goes for a lot of money on the secondary. I see this for like 600 bucks sometimes. I've seen it multiple times in stores for $500 to $600. On the nose, it's got a really nice nose. Sure as hell not a $600 nose. And I don't expect it to be. I'm not expecting this to be, live up to the hype or whatever. I'm just very interested in trying it because I've never had this particular Weller expression. And I do like Weller as a brand. All the hype aside, I think their products are good. Most people, I think, really like the Antique 107. I think that's where Weller really, really kind of shines, is with that one. The Special Reserve, for what it's supposed to be, a $25 sort of bottom shelf weeder, I think is actually really good, but it's good for that. And so, full proof is pretty good. I had that once. Anyway, enough blabbing about Weller. Let's get into it. On the nose, it has that nice sort of bready note. This one is leaning a little bit towards like a Maker's Mark profile, which is interesting. It's reminding me a little bit of that. Maker's is another weeder, but it's definitely has kind of a unique flavor profile that I don't tend to get on a lot of other weeders and other Weller products. But it kind of has that same sort of like bready, weedy, maybe sort of like a shortbread sort of note to it. A little bit of caramel, a little bit of vanilla. It's light and bright. Let's get into it on the palate, see what happens. Cheers. That's just fine. It's just fine, For the $40 to $50, it's just fine. Nothing spectacular, but a nice flavor profile. Everything on the palate is kind of what you get on the nose. This seems to be kind of a fairly basic bourbon in the sense that it has a few things. The wheat note in it, I think, is a little more prominent on this one than the other Weller expressions I've had. Like I said, it kind of reminds me a little bit leaning into that Maker's Mark profile, which is nice. But it's got that. It's got like the light caramels, light vanillas, very standard sort of stuff. It's a nice and sweet bourbon, so if you're into that. But it's kind of a narrow lane of flavors, and it's good at what it does, but it's nothing spectacular. Let's have another sip. On that second sip, I definitely noticed a little bit more of kind of an oak and black pepper, like a little bit of a spice kind of riding along top of that sweetness, which is a nice blend. I always like that when you can get, especially with a wheated bourbon. Wheaters are known for being a little bit softer on the palate, a little bit sweeter, but they're not without their spice. And when you can get a good one that has a nice blend of those kind of caramel sweetnesses and then that nice oak spice and a little bit of black pepper, I think that's a really good combination for a bourbon. This has that. So I guess it's hard to review these ones that get overhyped and they get sold for ridiculous money on the secondary because, it's like, when it comes time to like, would I recommend this particular bourbon? If this was a regular shelf bottle available at 40 bucks, no hype, no nothing, yeah, I would say it's worth that. I don't think that I would go much higher than that. 40, 50 bucks. You can do a lot worse for 40 or 50 bucks, that's for sure. But you can do a lot better as well. So this is kind of like a mid-range. I would not say it is the perfect bourbon. I think that that might just be a little bit of advertising. But yeah, it's really good. If again, all hype aside, if that never existed and this was just a regular everyday product, yeah, I'd buy this once in a while. It's got nice flavors to it. It's easy and approachable. I think that it's got enough flavor that, you know, an experienced bourbon drinker I don't think is going to hate this. You know, it might be profoundly underwhelming considering, you know, what it takes to get a bottle. But again, all that hype aside, I'd say it's a pretty average down the middle as far as quality bourbon. So take that how you will. Definitely do not overpay for this. This is not a premium worth the secondary market hype at all. If you get maybe a chance to pick one up in a lottery for the MSRP, I would say do it. It's a cool bottle to have on your shelf, I guess, if you want to round out your Weller collection. But if you're not interested in that at all and you really, you know, don't care about just wanting to try all the different Wellers, I'd say, you know, you're not missing out on a ton if you never get to try this one. Very average. So anyway, well, hey, thank you very, very much to Bourbon School for sending along this sample. Please like, comment, and subscribe over on Bourbon School, and like, comment, and subscribe here at the Bourbon Note as well. This has been Weller CYPB on the Bourbon Note. I'm Ben. We'll see you on the next one.